Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred was recently live interviewed on ESPN Baseball's presentation of Sunday Night Baseball when the topic of expansion came up. Now, for those of you that don't know, there's been an ongoing discussion around the league of possibly adding 2 new cities to Major League Baseball, bringing the total of teams from 30 to 32. He maintained the same kind of stance that he always does, that he was very much in favor of adding 2 new teams, and the teams that might lead the charge in getting those slots are self-reported and have shown that they are interested in possibly having a team. Cities mentioned are Portland, Oregon, Salt Lake City, Utah, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Nashville, Tennessee. He did expand into another area that I think it was surprising to most people, myself included. I think that if we expand, it provides an opportunity to geographically realign. Could we see a shuffling of divisions to better represent different areas of the country? And if so, what would that look like? Once again, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video so you never miss one in the future here on this channel or over at my second channel, More Mayday. Also, go check out the Substack at IamTrevorMay.com. It is completely free. If you decide to support, you will get a bunch of perks, like every YouTube video at least 2 days in advance without ads, the ability to directly DM me any questions you might have, which may also make it into a video, exclusive bonus content, and more. Anyway, thank you for your support. Now back to the video. Now, before we dive in on this whole realignment idea, I want to acknowledge that though I don't agree with Manfred on many things, if really ever, this time I'm seeing some pros that are heavily outweighing the cons, possibly. And in this interview, he gives some pretty compelling reasons that this could be a good idea. Lauren Miarola of The Athletic reported on this in her own article, and a lot of the quotes I'll be using will come from there. I think we could save a lot of wear and tear on our players in terms of travel. I think our postseason format would be even more appealing for entities like ESPN because you'd be playing out of the East, out of the West, and that 10 o'clock where we would sometimes get Boston versus Anaheim could be 2 West Coast teams. That 10 o'clock slot that's a problem for us sometimes becomes a real opportunity to our West Coast audience. There's 2 big benefits that Manfred inevitably sees. One, generally reduces travel for all teams, a little bit more advantageous to keep guys a little bit more fresh, less East Coast, West Coast travel, less, bouncing all over the place. And that's better for broadcast times as well. But I really like the idea that players won't have to deal with as much travel, which is one of the big reasons the season can feel like a grind. Also, in that same vein of improving broadcast opportunities, you'll be able to line playoff games up even better so that you can capture more of a national audience, even if 2 teams are on the West Coast or 2 teams are on the East Coast. And up to this point, it's been pretty regional to the sides of the country based on how the teams line up. I would say there's a bunch more benefits. One big one being that more fans will have more regional representation for fandom. It's a team that you can truly love. If you're from Tennessee, it doesn't feel very good for a lot of people to be huge Atlanta Braves fans because they're the closest. You would love to show that Tennessee pride. We see this in college football. I think it would be a huge benefit for them to have a baseball team as well. So I think that is just generally good for the game because 1, you bring more people in to enjoy the game of baseball, and 2, obviously, the markets expand, the more opportunity there is for revenue. Manfred has also said that he would like to have both of these expansion teams figured out and picked by the time he is out of the commissioner's office after 2028 when his contract expires. He does seem committed to get this done and get this done as soon as possible. And overall, this proposal or semblance of a proposal is fairly widely popular, though there are some naysayers, especially on Twitter. And the consensus is that they just really don't want their game to change so much, similarly to like you don't want your kids to grow up too fast because you're going to miss them when they go off to college. Pug Mom seems especially annoyed. And if we've learned anything, it's that you just don't mess with Pug Moms. All jokes aside, the consensus does seem to be along the lines of tradition. And we've seen that really doesn't have really strong legs when it comes to decision making. I don't really see that as a huge con, but I do understand where those people are coming from. Beyond that, there really isn't a reason not to shake it up, both logistically and financially. And it's not like the Major League Baseball has never done anything like this before. This would actually constitute the 5th major realignment of the league since 1900, and the first 4 were seen as being pretty radical at that time as well. So this is kind of how the league has changed. From 1901 to 1960, there were just two 8-team leagues, the National League and the American League, with the winners of the league, whoever had the best record at the end of the season, just playing in one series that was the World Series. Then in the first expansion time, from 61 to 62, there was 4 teams added, 2 to each league. In the AL, it was the Los Angeles Angels and the Washington Senators, which actually became an expansion team in Washington after the Senators that were already there moved to Minnesota. And then the NL got the Mets and the Houston Colt 45s, which later became the Astros. So now we have 2 10-team leagues, but still no divisions. In 1969, we had the Kansas City Royals added, the Seattle Pilots, which actually only spent 1 year in Seattle, then moved to Milwaukee. I bet you can see where the throwback color scheme came from for those Brewers games. We also got the Montreal Expos in the NL and the San Diego Padres. In that realignment, we also saw the introduction of divisions with the East and West divisions of each league. This led to division winners then going to the playoffs, meeting in the league's championship series, which is brand new, and then the World Series. So playoff pool went from 2 to 4, and you're going to see a theme here. Also worth noting, the Yankees won 20 of their 27 rings before 1969. So do with that information what you will. In 1972, the Washington Senators moved again, this time to Dallas to become the Texas Rangers. Some of the divisions get mixed up a little bit in order to keep the balance East versus West, because now we're getting more teams in the Central. In 1977, the AL expands again, adding the Toronto Blue Jays and then the Seattle Mariners taking over for where the Pilots were. 16 years later in 93, we add 2 more teams, this time to the NL with the Florida Marlins and the Colorado Rockies. And then 1994 is when this thing really blows up, and this will be closer to what we have seen in the past. Now the league split into 3 divisions because we're getting more teams focused in the middle of the country. We have the East, Central, and West. This is also the first time we see the wild card. So now we have gone from 2 to 4 to 8 teams in the playoffs, and the wild card makes a lot of sense because there was only 3 teams going for division winners, and you needed 1 more team in order to fill out a logical number of teams to play off to make sense. Because it expanded again, we need another level, so then we get the division series. Then we have 98, where there was the 3rd major realignment, along with an expansion again with the Arizona Diamondbacks joining and the Tampa Bay Devil Rays at the time. We have the Detroit Tigers moving divisions from the AL East to the AL Central. Now, when the Brewers moved from the AL to the NL, that made it 16 teams in the NL, 14 in the AL. But then we have the Houston Astros moving over from the NL to the AL and joining the AL West in 2013, making it 15 teams in each league and giving us the format we currently have. And as we all know, in 2022, the playoffs were expanded from 10 total teams out to 12, and that is the format we currently have. So it could happen, and it almost always does, especially after league expansion. There's a bunch of ways that you could do this. Trevor Plouffe recently on his podcast, Talkin' Baseball, proposed possibly doing a West Coast versus East Coast league situation, getting rid of the American versus National League and just calling them East versus West. Or you could do the North versus the South. Actually, maybe we don't do that one. Stephen Nesbitt, in another article written for The Athletic, went so far as to project where he sees each division shaking out if those common cities that have been mentioned before for expansion this time end up happening. So first things first, you notice that there is now 4 divisions as opposed to 3. This would actually bring us back to that even number that makes more sense, and we won't need to worry so much about wild cards. So I'm assuming that if this happened, the playoffs would then follow. The AL West would be Seattle, either Portland, Salt Lake City, the Las Vegas Athletics, and the Angels. Then we would have the AL South, which would be a new division. That would be Colorado, Kansas City, Texas, and Houston, with Colorado obviously switching over from the National League to the American League. Then we have the AL North, which is Minnesota, Chicago, Detroit, and Cleveland. And then we have Toronto, New York, Baltimore, and Boston rounding out the AL East. It's pretty much the same division, which I like. Then in the National League, we have San Francisco, the Dodgers, San Diego, and Arizona all together. Once again, a lot of those same kind of battles are happening, with Colorado leaving, which is the worst team, so I don't hate it. We have Milwaukee, Chicago, Cincinnati, and St. Louis. Then we have Nashville, Raleigh, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and Miami. Rounding it out in the East, we have Pittsburgh, New York Mets, Philadelphia Phillies, and the Washington Nationals, with Pittsburgh moving over to join the East. Generally, I think this is pretty good overall. I don't see a lot of problems with it, especially on the side of like competitive balance and rivalries. I like the idea of adding a new division because all of the teams play each other so much more now than they did before, with the inter-division games being 13 per team instead of 19 like it used to be before. So that's already a direction we're moving in. So it doesn't matter so much if you have a lot of teams in your division because you're playing everyone so much anyways. Having the 4 divisions allows you to go back to division winners automatically going, and the wild cards can be a little bit more flexible. Also, it keeps many of the major rivalries intact. We're talking the Mets versus the Phillies, Boston versus the Yankees, San Francisco versus the Dodgers, San Francisco versus the Padres. They're all still in division, and the ones that are mixing up are kind of the bottom of the division that maybe we can see some more rivalries happening because they're closer geographically. This is exciting for me. I think more rivalries is an overall net positive. I also don't think that there's enough movement to mess up the economic dynamics of like markets. We're not adding all the major markets together into one division. Those are maintaining kind of their separation, with the exception of obviously the AL East, but they already have all the big markets anyways. So like there's just no way to really avoid that because there's so many big cities in such a concentrated area, but it doesn't make it worse. And that is one thing that I will say is a positive. You could do this shuffling without really changing any huge economics for divisions. And lastly, travel's better. Travel's just simply better. I would love for the Tampa Bay Rays to be able to go to Miami more often because it's not that far. They could drive if they needed to. There's just less overall miles needing to be flown, which I think is a net positive, one from a cost standpoint for the teams, but also players, like it's just easier to do that. I think it solves that problem. I think it solved that problem well. So at the end of the day, I think that realignment would create a bunch of interesting storylines. I like the idea that the playoffs can be televised in a more efficient way so more people can watch the games, because at the end of the day, we just want people to watch games. And I think those benefits really outweigh the it's just too different kind of camp of dissent. As always, I need to know what you think. Do you think Nesbitt's proposal is a good way to go, or do you have a different idea, or did you see something else out there that you think would work even better or be more interesting? Let me know down in the comments as always, because you are the reason I do this stuff, so I appreciate you being here. Also, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the videos, and give me a little like because it helps the algorithm, and we all know that you got to feed the algorithm. And lastly, go check out that Substack once again at I'mTrevorMay.com. It's free if you want it to be. So remember, drink your water, watch your baseball, and I'll see you next time on the Trevor May Baseball /Mayday channel. Good night.